Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor. This is a fantastic moment. I haven't done this before. And the job they've done on the border is unthinkable. What they left us with, that they would have open borders with millions of people, 25 million people, probably more than that, pouring into our border, totally unchecked and unvetted. Now we have the opposite. And we want people in our country, but they have to come in legally. And they know that, and they know they're not getting through, so now they don't even try. So all of the death that Tom Holman talked about, the rape and the death and all the problems, doesn't really happen because the caravans, the name I think I came up with, maybe not. But the caravans are very small. In fact, for the most part, they don't even exist anymore because they know they're not going to get through. In a little while, you'll be seeing. I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth. Literally, they put words in my mouth. They had to be saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They would. They actually put terrible words in my mouth, having to do with January 6th, that I didn't say. And the beautiful words that I said, right? The beautiful words. Talking about patriotism and all of the good things that I said. They didn't say that, but they put terrible words. They actually have me speaking with words that I never said. And they got caught because I believe somebody at BBC said, "This is so bad it has to be reported. Let's call fake news." So we'll be filing that suit probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning. I want to thank all of you for being here. If you have any questions, I guess you could ask, but this is really a day of celebration for these people. The job they've done is really unprecedented. So, go ahead.
This year, you fired Democrats from a number of federal agencies, and now going into 2026, there are some key regulators like the SEC, the CFTC that are going to have 0 Democrats. Do you plan to appoint Democrats to fill those empty spots, or do you think that federal agencies shouldn't have Democrat commissioners?
Well, do you think they would be appointing Republicans if it were up to them? So we'll look at it. Look, we want to be fair, but typically they're not appointing Republicans. So you're asking me the question whether or not I'd appoint Democrats. But there are certain areas that we do look at, and there are certain areas that we do share power, and I'm open to that.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans have denounced your statement on Truth Social after the murder of Rob Reiner. Do you stand by that post?
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. He said he knew it was false. In fact, it's the exact opposite that I was, a friend of Russia, controlled by Russia. It was the Russia hoax. He was one of the people behind it. I think he hurt himself in career-wise. He became like a deranged person, Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all, in any way, shape or form. I thought he was very bad for our country.
Mr. President, Leader Thune doesn't seem like he wants to get rid of blue slips. Will there be consequences for the Senate?
It's not possible to appoint a U.S. attorney. You see that happening. And I think it's a disgrace. I think blue slips are a disgrace. They've long since… they're not. They should not be relevant anymore. This is a different world than it was 15, 20 years ago. That was a gentleman and gentlewoman world. This is a little bit different, unfortunately.
Mr. President, what do you want to see Congress do this week as it relates to health care and the expiring ACA?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd like to see the people get the money. I'd like to see all of the money that's going to the Democrat insurance companies. The insurance companies are making a fortune. They're up 1,700% and more, and they're taking in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars, And Obamacare gives you terrible health care. Just so you understand, Obamacare was set up, and I said it right from the beginning, for the benefit of the health insurance companies, of the insurance companies. They're making billions and billions of dollars. Their stock is through the roof. I don't want to give them anything. I want all money going to the people and let the people buy their own health care. It will be unbelievable. They'll do a great job. They'll get much better health care at a much lower cost.
Sir, would you like Republicans next year to just use reconciliation to do with healthcare exactly what you laid out and they wouldn't have to worry about Democratic votes?
Well, that would knock out the filibuster. If you knocked out the filibuster, it would all go away. But we have a few people that wouldn't do that. It's crazy. Look, we should knock out the filibuster. And if you did that, we'd get voter ID. You'd have, no mail-in voting. All things that make our elections dishonest. And you'd get a lot of other things having not even to do with voting. But, Republicans should knock out the filibuster, and we should approve a lot of things. You wouldn't have January 30th looming because you know you have the 30th of January looming. You know that, right? And if we knocked out the filibuster, it would be just a simple approval. But you have some Republicans that they're unable to explain why if you ask them why they're unable to explain it, they cannot win the debate. But they should knock out the filibuster, and frankly, they should get rid of the blue slips too.
Mr. President, the Democrats won Miami where you won the election 1 year ago. Do you think it's because of the Hispanic media like Telemundo that are publishing fake news about the ICE operations? How do you plan to win back those votes for midterms?
Yeah, well, I won that whole election. And you know, it's interesting when I'm not running, we don't do as well. And I'm going to try and get that changed for the midterms. But we did have a big win in Tennessee, as you know. Matt Van Epps, had a big win in Tennessee against a very strong candidate, attractive candidate, who a lot of people thought would do very well. And Matt won by a lot, and I won Tennessee by a real lot. You know, we had a great election. We won every single swing state. We won the popular vote. We won everything. And, there's a thing that they have now, districts, which is a big deal. I think in a way it's the most important stat from the standpoint of, looking at numbers accurately. So out of thousands of districts, I won 2,750 versus 525. Think of that. 2,750 versus 525. It was great. That's why the map, when you see a map of the election, it's all red, other than two little narrow lines on the other side.
A question about Ukraine. Now that the meetings in Berlin have wrapped up with Zelensky, is there a timetable for going to Moscow? Is a delegation going?
Well, I think that the delegation is largely there right now. Actually, they're in Europe, and they met with those people that I called out before, the various countries, plus some others. They want to see it end, Katie. They want to see it end. They all want to see it end. They want to see it end. I actually think that President Putin wants to see it end. You know, I've had good talks. We've had good talks with Russia, and I think they'd like to get back to a more normal way of life.
Mr. President, follow up in Article 5 like, deal seems to be emerging without NATO membership for Ukraine. If such a security guarantee is offered, what incentive is there for Ukraine to give up any sort of territory?
Well, look, they've already lost the territory, to be honest. I mean, the territory is lost, but in terms of security guarantee, we're working with Europe on it. Europe would be a big part of that, and we're working on the security guarantees. So the war doesn't start up again. We don't want to have a war start up again. You know, as I said with Thailand and Cambodia, two people I get along with great, and I dealt with them, and I called them, and I said, look, fellas, you got to relax. You got to take it easy. They lost, they started the war again. I got it ended. And things like that are going to happen. War. There's nothing pretty about war, nothing good. And there's nothing you can do to predict what's going to happen. But I think we've made a lot of progress with respect to Russia and Ukraine. I hope. Last month it was close to 27,000 soldiers were killed. Mostly soldiers. But 27,000 people. But mostly soldiers were killed last month in Russia versus Ukraine.
Is there a time limit on security guarantees?
Well, there's no time limit. The time limit is whenever we get it done. I mean, we're going to try to get it done. We're making progress. It's more difficult than anybody could have thought. I would have said that half of the wars that I got settled, some were going for over 30 years, that half of them should have been more difficult, and they actually haven't been. There's a lot of dislike between the two leaders. You know that, and so it probably makes it a little bit tough.
Have you spoken directly to Putin?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
On Syria, Mr. President, on the U.S. troops killed in Syria over the weekend. Why do we have troops in Syria?
Because we're trying to make sure that there's going to be and remain peace in the Middle East, and Syria is a big part of it. The new leader is a strong person, and that's what you need. This is a rough part of the world, and it's been amazing what's taken place in Syria. We got rid of Assad. We got rid of other people that were really bad people, and that were in the way of peace in the Middle East. We have legitimate peace in the Middle East, first time in 3,000 years, and we have 59 countries backing it, and we'll see what happens with Hamas. We'll see what happens with Hezbollah. But regardless, we have countries that want to go in and clean that out if we want them to do it. But they said in the case of Hamas, they said that they're going to disarm, and we're going to find out whether or not that's true. Hezbollah in Lebanon has been a problem. We'll see what happens there. But there is legitimate large-scale peace in the Middle East. And if there weren't, we wouldn't have been able to make all of those deals that we've made with the various countries. They would have never been able to do that if we didn't with that B-2 bomber right there on the desk. If we didn't, of which we just ordered a lot more of the newer version, totally stealth, they could not see it. They knew it was coming. They had no idea where it was. It was pretty amazing, actually. Every bomb hit its mark perfectly, despite CNN trying to say differently. They didn't know, they just, hoped. They hoped that we didn't, but turned out that they did. Atomic Energy Commission confirmed it. So did Iran confirm it. They got knocked to hell. But if we didn't knock out their nuclear capability, we would have never had peace in the Middle East, because you would have had a dark cloud hanging over Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and all the other countries. And they would have never, ever been able to sign an agreement.
Mr. President, market analysts are calling for a Santa rally. Typically, it's 5 training days going into Christmas, and in the first 2 trading days of January. That's a sign of market optimism. Do you anticipate, along with the historical low gas prices, that continuing into the first quarter?
Well, we've had the greatest stock market in history, Brian. We have a stock market that's gone up 52 times to new highs during a 10-month period. My 10 months. My first 10 months we set a record, 52 days. We had the highest stock market in history, including a day ago. And I didn't look today, maybe it's up today. I don't know. But we had 52 altogether, and there's never been anything like it. And the reason are, the tariffs have brought vast amounts of wealth into our country. That countries that have taken our car companies, those car companies are all coming back. The AI is coming at levels that nobody's ever seen before. That's going to be a massive industry. Without the tariffs, we wouldn't have that. Chips are coming in. Chip companies are coming in from Taiwan and other places, but mostly from Taiwan, which has almost 100% of the market. And we're now making chips, and we're not paying anything. It's not the CHIPS Act, where they give billions of dollars to companies and then they just take the money and they run. That was under Biden. The fact that I set tariffs up, and that if they don't make their chips here, they have to pay a big tariff in order to send them into the US. They have to be here. You know, tariffs really work. In my opinion, almost only in the United States. They've been used against us successfully because we had presidents that had no clue, but tariffs really work. We have taken in hundreds of billions of dollars with tariffs. And more importantly, we've taken in countries and companies and even countries have sent their car-making people into the United States in order to avoid paying tariffs. And they'll build a plant, and they'll hire our people to make the cars. But we now have, as you know, Toyota just approved $10 billion in manufacturing plants in the United States using our people. Without tariffs, none of that would have happened. Tariffs have given us great national security. There is nothing like what's happened in the last 10 months. Tariffs have given us tremendous national security and tremendous wealth. Thank you all very much. Thank you.